You know how some conversations replay in your head for weeks afterward? This wasn't one of those. This one I knew would stick forever the moment it happened. I was scraping leftover spaghetti into the garbage disposal when she hit me with it. No warning, no lead up, just boom. I don't feel attracted to you anymore. The fork I was holding clattered into the sink. Not because I was shocked, but because of how she said it. Like she was announcing the weather forecast or asking me to pick up milk on the way home. I turned around and there she was, leaning against the counter with her arms folded, wearing this expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, not sad, just matter of fact. Like she'd been practicing this moment in her head and was relieved to finally get it out. Instead, I nodded slowly and said, I appreciate the honesty. The look on her face was priceless. You could see the confusion creeping in, like she'd prepared for a completely different conversation. She blinked a few times, uncrossed her arms, then crossed them again. That's it, she asked. That's all you have to say? What else would you like me to say? I asked, genuinely curious. You've told me how you feel. I can't argue with your feelings, and I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. This clearly wasn't going according to her script. Well, I just thought. I mean, don't you want to talk about it? About us. Talk about what exactly? I continued, wiping down the counter. You've made your position clear. You're not attracted to your husband. I understand. It's not that simple, she said, her voice getting a little sharper. Marriage is about more than just attraction. I stopped wiping and looked at her again. You're absolutely right. But attraction is still important. If you don't have it, you don't have it. I respect that. The silence stretched between us. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, then closed it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out why I wasn't reacting the way she expected. So what does this mean for us? She finally asked. I guess that depends on what you want it to mean, I said. But I won't pretend to be something I'm not, and I won't beg someone to find me attractive. That's not fair to either of us. She stared at me for another long moment, then turned and walked upstairs without another word. I finished cleaning the kitchen, same as always. The only difference was the clarity. For the first time in months, maybe years, I knew exactly where I stood. Later that night, she came to bed like nothing had happened, climbed in next to me, said good night like it was any other Tuesday. But when she leaned over for our usual goodnight kiss, I turned my head slightly, so she got my cheek instead. What was that about? She asked. Well, I said, settling into my pillow, you said you're not attracted to me. I figure a goodnight kiss between spouses should probably involve some level of attraction, don't you think? She was quiet for a moment. You're being ridiculous. I'm being logical, I corrected. You can't have it both ways. Either you're attracted to your husband or you're not. You've made your choice clear. I could feel her staring at me in the dark, but I closed my eyes and went to sleep. For the first time in months, I slept like a rock. There's something liberating about knowing exactly where you stand, even when it's not where you thought you'd be. The next morning, I got up at my usual time, got dressed, and headed downstairs to make coffee. Normally, I'd bring her a cup in bed. She loved that little gesture, always said it was one of her favorite parts of the morning. But as I stood there with the steaming mug in my hand, her words from the night before echoed in my head. I took my coffee and sat at the kitchen table instead. When she came downstairs 20 minutes later, she looked around like she was searching for something. No coffee this morning? She asked, pouring her own cup. Help yourself, I said, not looking up from my phone. Coffee's fresh. You always bring me coffee in bed. That was when I thought my wife was attracted to me. I said matter-of-factly. Now I know better. She stood there holding her mug, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You're really going to be like this? Like what? I asked, finally looking up. I'm treating you exactly the way someone treats a person who isn't attracted to them. With respect, but without the intimacy that comes with mutual attraction. That's not. She started, then stopped. That's not what I meant. Then maybe you should think more carefully about what you do mean, I said, standing up to rinse my mug in the sink. Because I'm taking you at your word. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Have a good day, I called over my shoulder, the same way I'd say it to any roommate. By the time I got home from work that evening, she was waiting in the living room like she'd been sitting there for hours. The conversation that followed would set the tone for everything that came next. She was sitting on the couch when I walked in, still in her work clothes, hands folded in her lap like she was preparing for a serious discussion. I nodded hello and headed straight to the kitchen to start dinner. Same routine as always. We need to talk, she called after me. About what? I asked, pulling ingredients from the fridge. About last night. About this morning. About whatever this is you're doing. I started chopping vegetables for a stir fry. I'm making dinner. Same thing I do every Wednesday. She appeared in the kitchen doorway. You know what I mean. The coffee thing. The kiss thing. You're acting different. Different how? I asked, not looking up from the cutting board. Distant. Cold. I set down the knife and turned to face her. I'm treating you exactly the same way I'd treat anyone who told me they weren't attracted to me. With courtesy and respect, but without the intimate gestures that should exist between people who are attracted to each other. But I never said I wanted those things to stop. You didn't have to, I said, going back to my vegetables. If you're not attracted to me, then intimate gestures would be inappropriate, wouldn't they? I'm just being considerate of your feelings. She shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. That's not. You're twisting what I said. I'm not twisting anything. You made a clear statement about your feelings. I'm respecting that statement. I tossed the vegetables into the hot pan. Would you prefer I ignore what you told me and continue acting like someone you find attractive? It's more complicated than that. Is it? I asked. Because it seems pretty straightforward to me. You're not attracted to your husband. Your husband has adjusted his behavior accordingly. Simple cause and effect. Dinner was ready in 15 minutes. I made 2 plates, set them on the table, and sat down to eat. She joined me after a moment, but kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to break character. So what's the plan here? She asked halfway through the meal. Plan for what? For us. For this. She gestured between us. Are you just going to treat me like a roommate forever? I put down my fork and looked at her directly. You tell me. You're the one who established the parameters of this relationship. I'm just operating within them. I was being honest about my feelings. I thought you'd want honesty. I do want honesty. And I got it. Now you're getting honesty back. I took another bite. This is what it looks like when someone respects your lack of attraction to them. She pushed food around her plate without eating much. This isn't what I wanted. What did you want? I asked. Did you want me to beg you to find me attractive? Did you want me to promise to change into someone you might desire? Because that's not how attraction works, and we both know it. I don't know. I wanted you to care that I said it. I do care. That's why I'm respecting it. I finished my dinner and stood to clear my plate. If you expected me to fall apart or start groveling, then you don't know me as well as I thought. That evening, I did what I always did. Watched some Netflix, read for a while, took care of a few things around the house. The only difference was that I did it all without checking in with her, without the casual touches and small interactions that married couples usually have. When she tried to snuggle up next to me on the couch during a movie, I shifted slightly away. Seriously, she said. Would you want someone you weren't attracted to putting their hands on you? I asked without taking my eyes off the screen. That's not the same thing, isn't it? If the attraction isn't mutual, then physical contact becomes something else entirely. I'm just making sure you're comfortable. She moved to the other end of the couch with an exasperated sigh. I could feel her staring at me, but I kept watching the movie. About halfway through, she got up and went to bed without saying goodnight. Friday morning, she came downstairs to find me drinking coffee and reading the news on my phone. No cup waiting for her on the counter. No kiss on the cheek as I headed out the door. Have a good day, I said politely as I grabbed my keys. Wait, she called after me. What are you doing this weekend? Haven't decided yet. Probably hit the gym, maybe meet up with some friends. What? We usually do things together on weekends. I paused at the door. Do we? Or do I usually plan things for us to do together? She was quiet for a moment. You plan most of our weekend activities, right? Well, I figured someone who isn't attracted to me probably wouldn't want to spend their free time with me. So I'm making other arrangements. I opened the door. Feel free to make your own plans. By Sunday evening, the house felt different. She'd spent most of the weekend texting friends, watching TV alone, doing her own thing while I went about my life without her. No shared meals, no couple activities, no lazy Sunday morning in bed. She was in the kitchen when I got back from the gym Sunday night, and she looked like she'd been waiting for me. This is ridiculous, she said the moment I walked in. What's ridiculous? This whole thing. You're punishing me for being honest. I grabbed a water bottle from the fridge and leaned against the counter. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. Protecting yourself from what? From continuing to invest emotional energy in someone who doesn't want it. I took a long drink of water. You told me you're not attracted to me. Okay, I heard you. Now I'm acting accordingly. But I never said I wanted you to stop being my husband. Didn't you? I asked. Because attraction is a pretty fundamental part of being someone's husband. At least, it is for me. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see something changing in her expression, like she was finally starting to understand that her words had consequences she hadn't considered. What if I was wrong? She asked quietly. Wrong about what? About not being attracted to you. I set down my water bottle and looked at her carefully. Were you wrong? Or are you just uncomfortable with the results of being honest? The question hung in the air between us, and for the first time since Tuesday night, she didn't have a quick answer. The first real test came Thursday night when her sister called about dinner plans for Saturday. I was in the garage working on my motorcycle when she found me 20 minutes later. My sister wants to know if we can meet them at Olive Garden Saturday night, she said, standing in the doorway. I looked up from the engine. You should go. Have a good time. She corrected. She invited both of us. I wasn't planning on going. I went back to adjusting the carburetor. You can tell her I had other plans. What other plans? Does it matter? The point is, couples who are attracted to each other go to dinner together. Since you're not attracted to me, it would be weird for us to pretend otherwise in front of your family. She stepped into the garage. You're really not going to come to dinner with my sister? Why would I? So you can sit there not being attracted to me while I make small talk with your family? That sounds uncomfortable for everyone involved. This is crazy. You're my husband. I stopped working and looked at her. Am I? Because husbands and wives are usually attracted to each other. You've made it clear that's not the case here. So what exactly am I? She opened her mouth, then closed it. We're married. Legally, sure. But what does that mean if there's no attraction? We're roommates with a shared bank account and some legal paperwork. That's not true, isn't it? I wiped my hands on a rag. Name one thing that makes us different from roommates, given your lack of attraction to me. She was quiet for a long moment. We share a bed. Do we? Because I've been thinking about that. Seems inappropriate for someone who isn't attracted to me to share a bed with me. I should probably set up the guest room. The color drained from her face. You want to sleep in separate bedrooms? I think it makes sense. You shouldn't have to share intimate space with someone you don't find attractive. That's not fair to you. She stared at me like I'd suggested we burn the house down. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. In fact, I'll move my stuff tonight. Give you the space you need. That evening, I transferred my clothes to the guest room dresser while she followed me around the house like a lost puppy. Every time I carried something upstairs, she had another protest. People will think something's wrong with us. Something is wrong with us. You told me so yourself. What am I supposed to tell my sister when you don't show up to dinner? Tell her the truth. Tell her you're not attracted to your husband, so family dinners felt inappropriate. I can't say that. Then make something up. Tell her I'm sick. Tell her I'm working. I don't really care. By 9 o'clock, I was settled in the guest room with my laptop and a book. She appeared in the doorway looking lost. This is insane, she said. This is logical, I corrected. Everything I'm doing follows directly from what you told me Tuesday night. But couples work through problems. They don't just give up. What problem are we working through exactly? Your lack of attraction to me? Because that's not really something we can fix with conversation. I looked up from my book. You can't negotiate attraction. Friday morning, she was waiting in the kitchen when I came down for coffee. She'd obviously been awake for a while, sitting at the table with her hands wrapped around an empty mug. I called my sister, she said without looking at me. Good. I hope you have a nice dinner. I told her you couldn't make it because you weren't feeling well. Smart choice. Much easier than explaining the truth. She finally looked up at me. Is this what you want? Separate bedrooms, separate lives, separate everything? I poured my coffee and sat across from her. What I want doesn't really matter here. You established the boundaries of this relationship when you told me you weren't attracted to me. I'm just respecting those boundaries. But you're my husband. So you keep saying, but what does that mean to you? Because it's starting to feel like you want all the benefits of having a husband without any of the attraction that usually comes with marriage. That's not. She started, then stopped. Isn't it? You want me to bring you coffee in bed, plan our weekends, go to family dinners, share a bedroom, but you're not attracted to me. How is that fair to either of us? She was quiet for a long time, staring into her empty mug. I don't know what I want. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to continue treating you the way someone treats a person who isn't attracted to them. That weekend was the loneliest she'd ever looked. She went to dinner with her sister alone, came home early, spent Sunday wandering around the house like she was looking for something she'd lost. I went about my normal routine, hit the gym, grabbed lunch with a buddy, worked on the motorcycle. Sunday evening, she knocked on the guest room door. "Come in," I called. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking around the room like she'd never seen it before. "How long are you planning to sleep in here?" "As long as it takes." "As long as what takes?" I closed my laptop and gave her my full attention. "As long as it takes for both of us to accept the reality of this situation. You're not attracted to me. That changes everything about how we relate to each other. What if I made a mistake?" "Did you?" "Because Tuesday night you seemed pretty certain about your feelings." She twisted her wedding ring around her finger. "Maybe I was angry. Maybe I said something I didn't mean." "Were you angry about something specific?" "I don't know. Maybe. It's all blurry now." I leaned back against the headboard. "Here's the thing. Whether you were angry or not, whether you meant it or not, you said it. And once those words come out, they change things. I can't just pretend I didn't hear them." "So what does that mean?" "It means I'm not going to spend my life wondering if my wife actually wants me or if she's just going through the motions because it's easier than dealing with the truth." She sat there for several minutes, not saying anything. Finally, she stood up and headed for the door. "Your sister called while you were out," she said quietly. "She wants to know if you're feeling better." "What did you tell her?" "That you're still not well." She paused in the doorway. "She said to tell you she hopes you feel better soon." After she left, I sat there thinking about how easy it had been to disappear from her life. One conversation, and suddenly I was not feeling well instead of her husband. The transition from intimate partner to convenient excuse had taken less than a week. Monday morning, I was back to my routine. Coffee alone, quick goodbye, normal day at work. But when I got home that evening, something had changed. She was sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of her, and she looked like she'd been crying. The papers on the table were credit card statements and bank records. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red and puffy. "We need to talk about finances," she said. I set down my keys and took the chair across from her. "What about them?" "Well, if we're living like roommates now, I figured we should split expenses like roommates." She pushed a piece of paper toward me. I calculated everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance. "Your half comes to about $1,200 a month." I looked at the paper, then at her. "Interesting timing for this conversation." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been married for 6 years, and you've never once suggested splitting expenses 50-50. But now, after a week of me treating you like someone who isn't attracted to me, suddenly you want to talk about money." She shifted in her chair. "If we're not really acting like a married couple anymore, then we shouldn't have married couple finances either." "Fair enough." I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. "Let's do this properly then. You make about 60% of what I make, so by roommate standards, you'd pay 60% of shared expenses. That brings your portion to about $1,800 a month." Her confident expression wavered. "That's not. I meant split it evenly." "Why?" "Roommates typically split expenses based on income. That's the fair way to do it." I showed her my calculations. "Unless you think the person who makes less should pay more, that seems unreasonable." She stared at the numbers on my phone screen. "I can't afford $1,800 a month." "Then maybe we should revisit this roommate arrangement you're proposing." I put my phone away. "Or maybe you should consider that married couples share expenses because they're building a life together, not just cohabitating." "You're being petty." "I'm being consistent. You want to change the fundamental nature of our relationship, but you only want to change the parts that benefit you. That's not how it works." She crumpled up her expense calculations and tossed them aside. "Fine. Forget the money thing. Already forgotten." Over the next few days, she tried a different approach. Suddenly, she was interested in everything I was doing. When I came home from the gym, she'd ask detailed questions about my workout. When I made plans with friends, she'd hint about joining. When I was working in the garage, she'd find excuses to come out and watch. Thursday evening, she appeared in the garage wearing a dress I hadn't seen in months and holding 2 beers. "Thought you might want a drink," she said, leaning against my workbench in a way that showed off her legs. I accepted the beer and took a sip. "Thanks." She moved closer, running her finger along the edge of the workbench. "You've been spending a lot of time out here lately. The bike needs work. Maybe I could help." She stepped even closer, close enough that her perfume was noticeable. I could hand you tools or something. I looked at her directly. I thought you weren't attracted to me. She started, then stopped. Can't a wife spend time with her husband? Can she? Because last week you made it pretty clear that attraction was an issue for you. Now you're out here in a dress, drinking beer, standing very close to someone you're not attracted to. That seems contradictory. She stepped back slightly. I'm just trying to be nice. Or you're trying to manipulate the situation. I went back to my work. If you're genuinely attracted to me, then say so. If you're not, then this behavior is inappropriate for both of us. You're impossible, she said, taking her beer and heading back to the house. Friday night, she tried again. I was watching a movie in the living room when she came downstairs in pajamas that left very little to the imagination. Mind if I join you? She asked, settling onto the couch next to me without waiting for an answer. Free country. She curled up against my side, putting her hand on my chest. What are we watching? Action movie. Probably not your thing. I like action movies. Her hand moved slightly lower. Sometimes. I paused the movie and looked at her. What are you doing? Nothing. Just watching a movie with my husband. The husband you're not attracted to? I never said I wasn't attracted to you. Yes, you did. Tuesday night, in the kitchen. Word for word. I don't feel attracted to you anymore. She was quiet for a moment. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe. Or definitely. I don't know. It's confusing. I gently moved her hand away from my chest. Here's what's confusing. Tuesday night you were certain about your lack of attraction. Now, after a week of experiencing what life looks like when your husband respects that lack of attraction, suddenly you're confused about your feelings. People can change their minds. Can they? Or are you just uncomfortable with the consequences of being honest? She sat up straighter. Why does everything have to be so analytical with you? Can't we just try to connect? Connect how? Through physical contact with someone you're not attracted to? That's not connection. That's desperation. Her face flushed red. I'm not desperate. Then explain this. I gestured at her outfit, her position on the couch. Explain why you're suddenly so interested in physical contact with someone who, according to you, doesn't attract you. She stood up abruptly. You know what? You're right. This is pointless. Now you're being honest. She stormed upstairs, and I finished my movie in peace. Saturday morning, she tried a different strategy. I found her in the kitchen making pancakes from scratch, still in her pajamas, humming while she cooked. Morning, she said brightly when I appeared. I made your favorite. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. Thanks, but I already ate. You already ate? It's only 8:30. Had a protein shake after my run. I'm meeting some friends for lunch later, so I'm not really hungry. Her face fell. Oh, I thought we could have breakfast together. Like we used to. When we used to have breakfast together, you were attracted to me. Things are different now. Can't we just pretend things are normal for one morning? Pretend. I set down my coffee cup. You want me to pretend you're attracted to me so we can have pancakes together? That's not what I meant. What did you mean? She turned off the stove and faced me. I meant can't we just try to be nice to each other? I'm being nice to you. I'm treating you with respect and consideration. But I'm not going to pretend we have something we don't have just to make you comfortable. What if I said I made a mistake? What if I said I am attracted to you? I studied her face carefully. Are you? Or do you just miss having someone bring you coffee in bed and plan your weekends? The question hung between us like a challenge. She looked at the pancakes, then back at me, and I could see her struggling with what to say. I miss us, she said finally. Which part of us? The part where I did things for you, or the part where you actually wanted me to do them? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. Sunday afternoon, I was in the guest room reading when she knocked on the door. When I looked up, she was holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerable, almost scared. Can we talk? She asked. Really talk this time? I closed my book and gestured to the chair by the window. She handed me a cup and sat down, cradling her own coffee like it was keeping her warm. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. About missing us versus missing what you did for me. And I think you might be right. She took a shaky breath. I think I got comfortable. I think I took you for granted. I waited for her to continue. When I said I wasn't attracted to you anymore, I think what I really meant was that I stopped paying attention to my attraction to you. Does that make sense? Not really, I said. Attraction isn't something you pay attention to. It's something you feel or you don't. But what if you stop noticing it because everything else becomes routine? What if you stop seeing your husband as an attractive man because you only see him as the guy who brings coffee and plans weekends and fixes things around the house? I sipped my coffee and considered her words. So you're saying you were attracted to me, but you forgot about it? I'm saying I think I confused being comfortable with being unattracted. She set down her cup and looked directly at me. And I think I didn't realize what I had until this week when you stopped doing all those things. Which brings us back to my original question. Do you miss me, or do you miss what I did for you? Both, she said quietly, but not in the way you think. Explain. She was quiet for a long moment, gathering her thoughts. When you stopped bringing me coffee, I was annoyed. When you stopped planning our weekends, I was frustrated. When you moved into this room, I was angry. But somewhere around day 4, something changed. What changed? I started really looking at you. Like, actually seeing you instead of just expecting you to be there. She twisted her wedding ring. And I realized that you're the same man I married 6 years ago. You're still attractive, still smart, still funny when you want to be. I just stopped noticing because I got lazy. I studied her face, looking for signs that this was another manipulation attempt. And when did this revelation occur to you? Yesterday morning. When you left to meet your friends, and I was standing in the kitchen with those pancakes, realizing I'd made breakfast for someone who had no obligation to eat it with me anymore. Because I'm someone you're not attracted to? Because I told you I wasn't attracted to you, whether that was true or not. She leaned forward. And in that moment, I realized how incredibly stupid I was. Why stupid? Because I threw away something real for something that wasn't even true. I convinced myself I wasn't attracted to you because it was easier than admitting I'd gotten lazy in our marriage. I set down my coffee cup. So you are attracted to me? Yes. Since when? She looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, when did you become attracted to me again? Tuesday night you were certain you weren't. Today you're certain you are. What changed between Tuesday and Sunday? The question clearly made her uncomfortable. I told you. I started paying attention again. Or you started missing the benefits of being married to someone who was attracted to you. That's not fair, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you only rediscovered your attraction to me after experiencing a week of life without it. She was quiet for several minutes. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. What if that's true? What if I only appreciate you when I'm losing you? Does that make it less real? It was a fair question, and I took some time to think about it. It makes it conditional, I said finally. It makes your attraction dependent on my behavior toward you rather than who I am as a person. But isn't all attraction conditional to some extent? Physical attraction, maybe. But we're talking about something deeper than that. We're talking about whether you actually want to be married to me or whether you just want to be married to what I provide. She stared at her hands. I don't know how to answer that. Then let me ask you a different question. If I went back to bringing you coffee and planning our weekends and sleeping in our bed, how long before you'd take it for granted again? I wouldn't. How do you know? Because this week showed me what I'd lose. But you only learned that after I pulled back. What happens when the lesson fades? What happens in 6 months when the coffee in bed becomes routine again? She didn't have an answer for that, and we both knew it. Here's what I think, I said, standing up. I think you miss being married. I think you miss having a husband who does things for you and with you. But I don't think you miss me specifically. That's not true. Prove it. How? I walked to the window and looked out at the backyard. I've been thinking about this situation for over a week now. About what it means, where it leads, what options we have going forward. And I think we need to be honest about what this marriage has become. I turned back to face her. We've been roommates pretending to be spouses for a while now. Your comment about attraction just brought that reality into focus. So what are you saying? I'm saying I think it's time we stop pretending. The color drained from her face. You want a divorce. I want to be married to someone who wants to be married to me. Not someone who wants to be married to the idea of me or the convenience of me, but actually me. I do want to be married to you. Do you? Or do you want to avoid the complications of not being married to me? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. The silence stretched between us. I called an attorney on Friday, I said quietly. You what? I made an appointment for Wednesday, just to understand our options. She stood up so quickly her chair nearly tipped over. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Because whether you realize it or not, we're already living like divorced people. We just haven't made it official yet. But I told you I made a mistake. I told you I am attracted to you. After a week of missing what I brought to your life. That's not the same as wanting me in your life. Yes, it is. No, I said firmly. It's not. And until you understand the difference, we don't have anything to build on. I headed for the door, then paused. The appointment is at 2 o'clock Wednesday. If you want to save this marriage, you have until then to figure out whether you actually want to be married to me or whether you just want to be married. I left her sitting in the guest room, staring at the space where I'd been standing. For the first time in over a week, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just standing still. Wednesday came faster than she expected. I was having my morning coffee when she appeared in the kitchen, fully dressed at 7 in the morning, which was unusual for her. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. And I think you're right. About most of it. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. I did take you for granted. I did get lazy, and I probably would do it again. I nodded but didn't speak. But I also think you've already made up your mind about this marriage, and nothing I say today is going to change that. Why do you think that? Because you scheduled that appointment before we had the conversation about whether I'm really attracted to you. You'd already decided we were over. She was right, and we both knew it. So what happens now? She asked. Now we stop pretending this is something it isn't. And what if I don't want a divorce? Then you'll have to want it alone, because I'm done. She sat down across from me, tears starting to form. What if I promise to change? What if I promise to never take you for granted again? How many times in your life have you made promises you couldn't keep? I asked. Not because you were lying, but because you overestimated your ability to be different than you are? She didn't answer. People don't fundamentally change, I continued. They might adjust their behavior for a while, especially when they're scared of losing something. But eventually, they go back to being who they are. So that's it. 6 years of marriage, and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. I stood up and rinsed my mug. You told me you weren't attracted to me. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. But it told me something important about how you see this marriage. What did it tell you? That you see me as optional. Someone you can take or leave depending on how you're feeling that day. That's not true, isn't it? Because the moment you got uncomfortable with the consequences of your words, you try to take them back. That tells me they weren't carefully considered in the first place. I grabbed my keys from the counter. The attorney meeting is at 2. I'll have papers drawn up for an uncontested divorce. We can split everything fairly and move on with our lives. What if I don't sign them? Then it becomes contested and takes longer. But the end result is the same. She followed me to the door. Is there anything I can say to change your mind? I stopped and looked at her one last time. You could have said you were attracted to me and meant it. You could have said it before you lost the benefits of being married to me. But you didn't. I'm saying it now. Now you're saying what you think I want to hear. That's not the same thing. I opened the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who genuinely excites you. Someone you don't have to remind yourself to appreciate. What about you? I'll be fine. Turns out there are plenty of people in the world who don't need to think twice about whether they're attracted to me. 3 months later, the divorce was final. She kept the house. I took my motorcycle and enough money to start fresh. The whole process was remarkably quick once she realized I wasn't bluffing. 6 months after that, I ran into her at Target. She was in the frozen food aisle, looking tired and about 20 pounds heavier than when we were married. When she saw me, her face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on forced cheerfulness. Hey, she said, blocking my path with her cart. How have you been? Good. You? Great. Really great. Work's been crazy, you know how it is. She kept fidgeting with her wedding ring finger, even though there was no ring there anymore. I've been meaning to call you. About what? Just to talk. About us. About everything. She looked around like she was making sure no one was listening. I think I made a huge mistake. I moved her cart gently out of my way. You made the decision you thought was right at the time. But I was wrong. About the attraction thing. I realize that now. Okay. She stared at me like she was waiting for something more. That's it. Just okay. What else would you like me to say? That you miss me too. That maybe we could try again. That you think about me sometimes. I looked at her carefully. The desperation in her voice was hard to miss. I hope you find what you're looking for. What if what I'm looking for is you? Then you should have thought about that before you threw it away. Her face crumpled a little. It's been really hard. Dating is horrible. Men my age are either divorced with baggage or they've never been married for obvious reasons. The good ones are taken. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Will I? Because I had a good one, and I ruined it. Her voice was getting shaky. I compare everyone to you now. Do you know how frustrating that is? Sounds like a personal problem. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're different. Colder. I'm the same person I always was. You just see me differently now that you can't take me for granted. I never took you for granted. Yes, you did. That was the whole problem. She stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd change my mind or offer some sign that there was still a chance. When I didn't, she pushed her cart away without saying goodbye. I finished my shopping and went home to my new apartment. Small place, but it's mine. No one there to tell me they're not attracted to me. No one there to take back words when they don't like the consequences. Last month, a buddy of mine set me up with his cousin. Smart, funny, attractive woman who laughs at my jokes and actually seems to enjoy my company. We're taking it slow, but she makes it clear that she's interested. It's refreshing to be with someone who doesn't need to convince themselves to want me. Sometimes I wonder if my ex-wife ever found someone else, but not enough to ask around. Her problems stopped being my problems the day she decided I wasn't worth wanting. I'm doing exactly what I told her I'd do. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Turns out there's a whole world of people out there who don't need to think twice about whether they're attracted to me.